A guy walks into a business dinner in Manhattan wearing a watch nobody at the table recognizes. Not a Rolex, not a Patek, not an AP, something else. Something the man across from him, the one wearing the Submariner, has never seen before in his life. And here's what happens next. The Submariner guy spends the whole dinner glancing at that wrist, trying to figure out what it is, trying to remember if he's seen it in a magazine, trying to place it somewhere. He can't, because the man wearing the mystery watch operates in a category the Submariner guy doesn't even know exists. There are 10 watch brands right now that the wealthiest, most tasteful men over 40 are quietly wearing, while everyone else is still chasing Rolex waitlists. You've probably never heard of any of them. By the end of this video, you'll know all 10, and you'll understand why the guy at number 1 is wearing the watch that ends the argument about who actually knows watches. Let me show you. Number 10. Christopher Ward. British direct-to-consumer brand founded in 2004 by 3 men in a small office in Maidenhead, England. The pitch was heretical at the time. Sell Swiss-made watches straight to the customer, skip the boutique, skip the dealer markup, pass the savings to the wrist that's actually wearing it. The industry laughed. They didn't laugh for long. 20 years later, Christopher Ward is producing Swiss-made watches with in-house calibers at prices the traditional Swiss brands cannot match. The C60 Trident Pro 300, the 12, the Bel Canto. Movements finished to standards you'd normally have to pay $4,000 more to touch. The man over 40 wearing a Christopher Ward isn't wearing a watch because he couldn't afford a Rolex. He's wearing a Christopher Ward because he read the specs, understood the supply chain, and figured out the Rolex Premium is mostly the boutique storefront in Geneva. The Submariner buyer paid $9,000 for the watch in the story. The Christopher Ward buyer paid $1,100 for the watch. Only one of them read the fine print. Number 9. Sinn, German. Founded in 1961 in Frankfurt by an actual former Luftwaffe pilot named Helmut Sinn. That's not marketing copy, that's the guy's actual name. Sinn makes tool watches for people who use tools. Their U-series dive watches are built from German U-boat steel. Their pilot chronographs pass NATO temperature ratings. Their EZM series is issued to police tactical units in Germany. None of this is a story Sinn tells in advertising. They don't advertise. The man over 40 wearing a Sinn is wearing a watch that was engineered to survive conditions his life will never actually put it through. That's the entire point. He bought a watch that will outlast 3 of his careers. He bought a watch that his son will inherit and not need to service for the first 30 years. Rolex sells you the idea of durability. Sinn sells you the durability itself. There's a difference. Number 8. Nomos Glashütte. The German brand that quietly rebuilt Bauhaus watchmaking after East Germany fell. Founded in 1990 in a town in Saxony called Glashütte, the same town that produces A. Lang & Söhne. The founder, Roland Schwertner, was a photographer who wanted to make honest watches, not luxury objects. Watches. Nomos designs its own movements in-house. That alone puts them in a category most brands 10 times their size cannot claim. The Alpha Caliber, the DUW 3001, the DUW 6101, all designed and finished at their manufacture in Glashütte. The Tangente, the Metro, the Zurich, watches that look impossibly clean on a dashboard photograph and quietly extraordinary on a wrist that spent 30 seconds studying them. The man over 40 wearing a Nomos Tangente to a dinner is wearing the design philosophy that produced the Bauhaus movement. Function, restraint, everything the watch does not need, removed. Everything it needs, perfect. The collector at the next table recognizes it immediately. Nobody else does. That's exactly why he bought it. Number 7. Junghans Max Bill. German again. Founded in 1861 in Schramberg, Germany, in the Black Forest. In the 1950s, Junghans commissioned an artist named Max Bill, a student of the Bauhaus school, to design a wristwatch. Bill delivered the cleanest analog dial ever produced in commercial watchmaking. Thin markers, perfect proportions, no branding beyond the minimum required for the movement to be identified. That watch is still in production today, essentially unchanged for 6 decades. Retail, under $1,000 for the automatic version. A man over 40 wearing a Max Bill is wearing the same dial design that graced the wrists of German industrial designers, Swiss architects, and modernist furniture makers for the last 60 years. It's the watch worn by the people who design the buildings you live in, the people who design the chairs you sit in. It's a taste flag, a quiet one. and every man who understands the reference nods when he sees it. Number 6. Habring². Austrian husband and wife independent watchmakers, Richard and Maria Habring. Their workshop is in a small town in Austria called Völkermarkt. They produce approximately 200 watches per year. Total. Richard Habring is best known for developing the modular chronograph movement for IWC in the 1990s, the caliber that powers the IWC Doppelchronograph. He left IWC to build his own brand with his wife. Every watch is signed by hand. Every watch is assembled by one of them personally. The man over 40 wearing a Habring² is wearing a watch made by two people, not a factory, not a division, two people, who know his name because he called them directly to order the watch, who sent him the delivery confirmation over email personally. That's not a purchase, that's a relationship. And the collector world has been quietly building relationships with Habring for 2 decades. Number 5. Ming. The Malaysian-born microbrand that broke into the serious independent conversation in 6 years. Founded in 2017 by Ming, a former commercial photographer and watch industry veteran. Based in Kuala Lumpur. Manufactures across Malaysia, Switzerland, and Germany with a distributed production model that shouldn't work on paper and yet consistently ships some of the most technically interesting watches under $10,000. The Ming 17.01, the 27.02, the 37.05. Case designs unlike anything the traditional Swiss houses have tried. Dial finishes borrowing from photography, architecture, and industrial design. The man over 40 wearing a Ming is signaling one very specific thing. He's not just a collector. He's a collector who reads the independent watch scene closely enough to know what's actually pushing the craft forward. Ming isn't a heritage story. Ming is a right-now story, and the men wearing it caught the moment early. Number 4. Kurono Tokyo. Japanese independent. The accessible line from Hajime Asaoka, one of the most respected independent watchmakers alive today. Asaoka's mainline pieces retail between $80,000 and $200,000. Hand-finished tourbillons, bespoke movements, wait lists, measured in years. The Kurono line was Asaoka's answer to a question serious collectors kept asking him. Could he make a watch at an accessible price that still carried his design language? He could. Kurono ships watches under $2,000. Every design, every dial, every case shape traced directly back to Asaoka's own aesthetic. The man over 40 wearing a Kurono is wearing an entry point to one of the most respected watchmaking minds working today. He may never afford the $80,000 Asaoka. He owns the Kurono because he understood the lineage. Every collector in Japan recognizes a Kurono at a glance. Almost nobody in the West does. That gap is exactly the reason to own one. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this. The next 3 watches are the ones the collectors don't post about publicly. Number 3. Laurent Ferrier. Swiss independent. Founded in 2010 by Laurent Ferrier, who spent 37 years at Patek Philippe. Read that again. The founder spent nearly 4 decades at Patek before leaving to build his own brand. Laurent Ferrier watches are made in a small atelier in Geneva, approximately 200 pieces per year. The Gallet Micro Rotor, the Classic Origin, the Sport Auto, every dial finished by hand, every movement built to the same tolerances Ferrier learned to demand during his Patek years. Retail starts at around $45,000. The man over 40 wearing a Laurent Ferrier is wearing the watch a former Patek Philippe master watchmaker built when he wanted to build something Patek Philippe wouldn't let him build. That's the whole story. Serious collectors know Laurent Ferrier. Serious collectors also know that the Patek Philippe wearer at the next table probably doesn't. That asymmetry is a form of wealth in itself. Number 2. Philippe Dufour. Swiss, independent. Considered by most serious collectors to be the greatest living watchmaker on earth. Dufour operates alone, from a small workshop in the Vallée de Joux, the same valley where Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Jaeger-LeCoultre have their factories. He has produced fewer than 200 watches in his entire career. The simplicity, the duality, the grande et petite sonnerie. Every finishing technique on a Dufour watch is executed by hand, by Dufour, personally. No apprentices, no assistants, no team. The current secondary market price on a Dufour Simplicity, the entry-level piece he was making 20 years ago at around $40,000, is roughly $400,000. A tenfold appreciation. The man over 40, wearing a Philippe Dufour simplicity, is wearing an object that 30 of the most serious watch collectors on Earth would trade almost any other watch to obtain. The Rolex wearer at the dinner has no way to identify what he's looking at. The AP owner might have a vague recognition. The Patek collector at the next table stops the conversation and walks over. That's what a Dufour signals, and that signal only reaches the people whose recognition actually matters. Number 1. Journe. François-Paul Journe, Swiss independent, founded his own house in Geneva in 1999. Every serious watch collector on Earth knows this brand. The general public has never heard the name. That gap is exactly what makes Journe the number 1 watch on this list. Journe builds every movement in his own workshop. He designs every dial in-house. He assembles every watch by hand with a team of watchmakers he trained personally. His mainline pieces, the Chronomètre Souverain, the Chronomètre Bleu, the Octa Automatique, retail between $25,000 and $50,000. His production is capped at approximately 900 watches per year across all his lines combined. The waitlist for existing Journe clients is measured in years. New buyers cannot even join the list at most authorized dealers. A Chronomètre Bleu appearing on a wrist at a business dinner does one specific thing. Every serious collector in the room stops what they're doing. Every finance guy with a Nautilus notices that other people at the table are looking at that wrist and starts trying to figure out what he's missing. And the man wearing the Journe doesn't have to say anything, ever. That's the top of this list, because Journe is the watch that separates the men who know from the men who think they know. The Rolex wearer, the Nautilus owner, the Royal Oak collector, they all recognize that they've been outranked without being able to name how. And the Journe owner never has to explain a single thing about the watch on his wrist to anyone in the room whose opinion actually matters. 10 watches, 10 brands. 0 of them advertise on television. 0 of them sponsor sports leagues. 0 of them have a wait list you can call your local jeweler to join. The men over 40 who wear these watches aren't wearing them because they can't afford the famous ones. They're wearing them because they figured out something the famous brands don't want you to figure out. The recognition that actually matters in a room full of successful men doesn't come from the general public. It comes from the 2 or 3 other men in that room who genuinely understand watches. Rolex is famous, Patek is famous, AP is famous. Fame is what people who don't know watches recognize. Nomos, Sinn, Christopher Ward, Junghans, Habring², Ming, Kurono, Laurent Ferrier, Philippe Dufour, and Journe. These are the brands the small group of men whose opinion actually matters recognize instead. The man over 40 wearing one of these has made his choice. He's not chasing the recognition of strangers. He's carrying the recognition of the few people at the dinner who actually read spec sheets. That's a different kind of wealth. Quieter, sharper, harder to fake, and it's the kind that lasts.